Milicic, former New Zealand under-20s coach and a goalkeeper in his own right as well. G'day, Millie. How you doing?
I'm good, Riccardo. Yourself?
Yeah, good, thank you, mate. And honestly, it's been a long time between drinks if we go back to the beginning of this season, since we've had a professional football team to follow in Auckland. You go back to the Knights days, which were, let's be honest, a bit of a disaster. So you have to go back to when Winton was running the Kings before we've seen anything that's even come close to this.
100%. I mean, all those years ago, I was a goalkeeping coach for the Knights and then the first year at the Kings. And it's been a long time since drink. I was a lot younger and a lot skinnier back then. But it's really good to see them up and running because Auckland's been crying out for it. Let's not kid ourselves.
Well, I think you've seen that, right? It's played out in the numbers that we've had. I had a few people come to me in the lead up to this and say, how successful will this team be? Will they be in the playoffs? And I was like, look, looking at the squad, I've got them finishing fourth, is where I had them at the beginning of the season before a ball was kicked in anger. So while I've been surprised that they're top of the table at this stage of the season, I think a lot of people did underestimate them.
I think there was a lot of underestimation, but at the same time, if you knew football and you looked at their signings, their big signings, you went, okay, this is different. I mean, they're coming from top competitions. They were players that played in the competitions they were in as compared to what I call the training dummies. And in the captain, you've got one of the best players the A-League's seen. He's played at an extremely high level against the best players in the world. I mean, he's captained Japan and gone to World Cups, etc. And there's enough there. And then you look at Louis Vestrada and you think, okay, you got a proper six. The May up top has got some real quality, and across the board, when you sign somebody who's been an A-League Player of the Year twice, you suddenly thought, okay, that's different. And then when I looked at the players they were signing from a New Zealand based, I thought they're going to be very hungry, they're going to be very desperate to achieve something, and it just had a sense. And then that first game when they won, I thought, all right, the monkey's off their back. And I did think after the 3 or 4 rounds when they were started to tighten up, and then they then kicked on, and now they're what they are, quite a formidably fit unit. And am I surprised where they are? Yes, but I was always thinking they'd make the playoffs. And fourth would have been it, but I was going for about second or third, to be honest. Yeah,
okay, all right. Well, they have had a little bit of a wobble recently, and when I say a wobble, I mean it's not a bad wobble when you've got 4 draws in 5 and you've won the other. I mean, you still haven't lost in 11 games. What have you made of that, and how that's been handled, and why do you think it's happened?
I think that people talk about their wobbling, but to win a league or to win a competition, it requires you not to drop points. They've lost 2 games in the 22 they've played, which is, a phenomenally low number. And it says to me they're extremely difficult to beat. Even games in which they're drawing, they're scoring late to draw, they're still trying to win games. And I think they probably have those draws recently. There's probably 2 of them where they're really trying to hammer the opposition and get the last goal to win. So I think they're in a pretty good shape. They would like to pick up a few more wins. And I think there's a little bit of tightening trying to win the Premier's Plate. And Steve was on the radio this afternoon talking about, hey, we're going to try our very best to win the Premier's Plate, something New Zealand's never done. And I thought that's a really big focus. They want to achieve something unique. I don't think anybody that's a first-year club's ever won it. If I could be wrong there, but it strikes me they've got a goal in mind that's starting to put a little tension in them. Yeah, and
they've got 4 games left, right? We're starting with Sydney FC today. Sydney have midweek had to go to Singapore to play in the Asia Cup, second tier of the Asia Cup. They lost that game, had to fly home on Thursday and prepare for this game tonight, and then they've got that game on their mind, the return against the Singaporeans midweek. So this looks to me, with the run-in being quite tight, you had Western Sydney last week, you got Melbourne Victory next week before Perth and Western to finish. This is probably the game that if you're Steve, you want to win this, get those 3 points, and you're almost there.
Yeah, I think if they go 6 points clear with a number of games to go, I think they could probably know that they're going to end up in the top 2, which then gives them the home semis and all the rest. So I think that tonight they'll see it as a must-win. Because you don't want to be close with 3 points, then there's a loss, and then all of a sudden it's all just a race to the end, and you don't want to go to Western Sydney having to win. So I think that what we'll see tonight is they'll try to win. They'll absolutely try to win. But I do question the tightness of it all, because I really want them to go into the playoffs. Like, they've made the playoffs, even if they lost every other game from now on. They've made the playoffs in a really high position. So I'd really like them going the playoff flying, because once you hit the playoffs, your home and away games and all the rest, you've got to start winning, and so to go into the playoffs, you've got to be winning a few games as you lead into those playoffs. So I think if they can win tonight, then the last 3 games they can go, right, we're getting ready for the playoffs.
Now, they're going to Sydney FC. It is Steve's old club, of course. He won titles there as a player. He won titles there as a manager. Be pretty sweet for him to do this with his new club there, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think so. But from my understanding, he was there for 12 odd years as a player, and then he's been coaching it. He started coaching at the junior ranks and came his way through. He's a Sydney FC player and person through and through. And I think that you always live with that, even though, he was removed or he quit or however it happens. And I don't believe everything the media says. I think there's always stuff in the background. He would certainly want to win, but I don't think it would be a huge driving point for him, because he can now, you think about when he was let go of Sydney, and at the beginning of the year when someone said Auckland FC, you're going to appoint Steve Corica, there would have been a lot of people go, really? I mean, they didn't understand the principle of it all. And I think he also wants to prove, look, I can win as a coach in other environments, because he's only ever been a coach in one environment, assistant coach and then a coach, and now he came out. And I think he's put all those sort of opinions to bed by showing I can win with a brand new club that no one else has done before. Now,
he signed, I think, a 3-year deal when he came to Auckland FC. But, I mean, we talk about the club network that they have. It's Auckland FC into Lorient, into Hibernian, into Bournemouth, etc. And that's a big hook for players to come here, right? Come and play here, prove yourself. You're in the Bournemouth scouting system, you get a move. That's why we've got a guy like Verstraete, who's still only 26 or whatever he is, who's played in the top league in Belgium and is a former Belgian under-21 international. You don't get those guys unless there's a hook for them, right? But how much of a hook is it for someone like Steve Corica? Sure, we know Ange Postecoglou's probably the outlier from an Australian coach going overseas, but this is an opportunity for him to also hook in that network, isn't it?
100%. 100%. Imagine if he suddenly was they pulled him in as the assistant manager at Bournemouth. It's a pathway. And I think one of the things that's happened previously in football in particular, for a coach, you're at a club, you leave the club, you got to find another club. Here, you're in a club network. I remember speaking to Des when he went into the City Group, and he's gone to Mumbai and all the other bits and pieces. And, they were talking about going to the All Whites, and I thought, there's no way in hell you're going to leave the City Group unless you're really 100% confident you can succeed and be really successful. So that's got to be a huge attraction, not just for Steve. I think you're talking Danny Hay, anybody within that pipeline. You think, well, maybe I could end up at Hibs. Maybe Steve's next move is to be the head coach at Hibs. I'm not sure that he's not thinking of the French club, because I've clearly got to speak an awful lot of French to go there. But why not?
Why not? I mean, Nick Montgomery tried it. Didn't work for Nick, but Steve's probably got a few more games under the belt as a head coach.
He's got a few more games under his belt, but he played in England. It's not like he's an unknown in England. And the one thing about the English football structure, you've kind of got to be there. And if you're there, they trust you and they know you're a player. I can tell you a little story. We turned up to the A licence in Europe, and the question was, the advice I was given when I first walked into the door is, the first time they play a game, go and play as hard as you can so that they know you're a player. So you get in there and you play like a crazy person. You do really well and you come off and they all think you're brilliant. You can't walk for a few days, but they think you're brilliant because you can play. If you go in those games and you can't play, there is no respect as a coach, as a person, and it's quite a brutal world up in the UK. And so Steve will have a lot of credibility because of that.
Yeah, and a lot of networks, right, too. I mean, networks are everything. I've mentioned this on here before about the Walsall Mafia, because Steve Corica, Danny Hay, Neil Emblem and Darren Baisley all played together at Walsall, and you've seen how that connection's worked in Auckland FC's favour, really, that relationship, having Steve and Danny go away with the All Whites when with Darren in charge and then come back with a couple of signatures in their back pocket.
That's right. I mean, football, but anything, any sport, any business, it's all about relationships. People have got to like you to do business with you. People have got to like you to invite you in. And I think that's how the game works. I mean, it's be like if you're an All Black and you suddenly turn up somewhere, someone's going to go, you're an All Black, let's introduce you and let's connect. I think there's never surprised the likes of Sean Fitzpatrick go to the UK and is a very successful business because he was an All Black. It's all about networks and it's all about the people you know. But there's things beyond that. But yeah, I think that you're quite right. The Walsall Mafia, I like that line.
Yeah. Well, you can use that. Feel free to use that. As we're chatting, actually, just watching the second half between the Wellington Phoenix and the Melbourne Victory. The Victory leading that one 2-1 just after half time. As we speak, Riccardo Ball and Chris Milicic with you from Tyler Street. Auckland FC is Auckland's newest football club, and of course they have one of the newest bars on the waterfront as well down here in Auckland. And anytime there's an Auckland FC away game, you can come down to Tyler Street. I'll tell you what, it's going to be packed in here tonight, though. So if you do plan on coming to Tyler Street to watch Auckland FC away games through the season, make sure you ring during the week and book yourself a table, because I think it's going to be standing room only in here tonight. Let's talk a bit about the opponent, Sydney FC. Chris, I mean, Ufuk Talay, we all know him from his time at the Wellington Phoenix. He's gone there. He's got some very good players at his disposal. Douglas Costa, of course, Brazil international, former Bayern Munich, former Juventus player. He's been in and out of the squad. Joe Lolly, who's a guy who played League One Championship, a very, very good quality player. A few Socceroos sprinkled in there as well. But they are sixth. Are you surprised they're sixth?
100% I'm surprised. I thought I watched them last year and I thought, right, you just need a couple of additions and I think you could easily push into the top two. And to find them sixth, you go, but if we allude to what you were talking about before, they've also got a second-tier Champions League campaign that's going to take a lot out of them. But yeah, I've been very surprised. I expected them to play better. I think Ufuk has a really good coaching ability. He seems to be quite demanding and focused on what he wants, and maybe that's conflicted against what the Sydney players want or what they get in. But I've been quite surprised, to be honest, that they're sitting sixth. But I think if they make the playoffs, which they should do, they'll be incredibly difficult opponents within a playoff system.
Now, last time these two teams met was the second round, and it finished 1-0 in Auckland. Nando Pinaka with a 97th minute winner. I don't see this game being as tight, because if I look at the Sydney squad, we've talked about Joe Lolly, we've talked about Doug Costa, etc. It seems a little unbalanced, which is unusual for an Ufuk Talay side, because he tends to be very much a defence-first kind of coach, but they seem a bit light at the back.
They do, but they're at home and they're fighting to make the playoffs. And I always think the most dangerous teams in football are the ones trying to achieve something where it's touch and go, avoiding relegation, trying to make a playoff when you're right in the depth. And if they can get into Auckland and decide they're going to be quite physical, they're going to upset them, they're going to run, their defence shouldn't be a problem. And to be fair, Auckland's not scoring the goals they have been doing previously. So I think you might find that he might release the defending shackles that he's known for no other reason that they've got to start getting 3 points. We're getting tight to the season. He can't afford to be jumped or caught, or they need to start picking up 3 points. And you'd have to say the way Auckland FC on paper has been travelling, he'd be fancying they can get the 3 points tonight.
Yeah, I mean, thing with Auckland FC and the way that the season's gone, we talked about those draws that they've had. They had a spate of them. I mean, I thought you looked at the Adelaide 4-all, there was a couple of contentious refereeing decisions which helped Adelaide.
Yep.
I think if you looked at the Central Coast Mariners 2-all, there was two very poor defending decisions made, one by Francis de Vries and I think the other one by about everybody in the back four who couldn't clear the ball. But they seem to have fixed that the last couple of weeks. They seem to be tighter again.
Yeah, I think that would be fair. But I often wonder if we knew what was going on in the background. Going into Central Coast, had they done too much work? Because they did. They looked like they'd thrown everything at the kitchen sink to get ready for that game. And then there's some uncharacteristic mistakes happen. You were like, what is going on here? And the massive crowd, I was lucky enough to be sitting there watching, and I just thought 20 minutes to go, I was looking, because you can see it live. Some of the players were starting to slow down, pull up, and I thought, And then they could still easily won that game. And we wouldn't be having this conversation. I mean, I think against Adelaide, the referees had a brain fade. I mean, that guy's looked for the pin. He's tried it twice, and he's got suckered in. And there was a horrendous foul on an Auckland FC player prior to one of the goals. And I was thinking, wow. But these things happen. Things happen, odd things happen. And over the course of a year, they even themselves out. So I never worry about those things.
And the player obviously that I was talking about before who made that error was Francis de Vries in the penalty era, backing off the ball rather than going to the ball, letting it bounce, and the player came in front of him. But, that aside, you got to call him out for when he makes a mistake, but you got to call him out for having one of the seasons on record. I don't think when he was signed that anybody thought he would be starting every game for Auckland FC this season. He's really stood up and made a name for himself.
He really has, and I think he's won 2 Month of the Year Player of the Month awards.
Yeah.
But the one thing about Francis that I've always respected is he's a very, very focused individual, and he clearly agreed to play there. He decided, because he's got fit. Like, I think when you play in New Zealand in an amateur semi-professional environment, you get kind of fit. And the one thing we should touch on is how Auckland FC has Elias there, who I think may be the greatest sports scientist I've seen in this part of the world in my life, right? But he's also got access to the Bournemouth figures and the data and that sort of thing. But yeah, Francis has really taken on board what he wants, but he's always had that ability to cross a ball. And now he's been given the license to do it, and that makes him one of the most dangerous players in the A-League. Yeah,
I had a look, the Opta stats. They basically average all of those out, and you have a look at it across the season. The top player in the A-League, according to the Opta stats, is Joe Lolly at Sydney FC. The second is Francis de Vries. Does that surprise you?
That's surprising.
Yeah.
Wow. But then if you think about it from an outcome perspective, he's created a bunch of goals. His crosses are extremely dangerous, and his passes into the 18-yard box, his penetration with the ball, his ability to get up and down is good. He wins his one-on tackles because people don't realise how big he is. Like, he is huge. And so there's a lot of really positive things that I'm really pleased from. I couldn't tell you how pleased I am to see someone, especially someone that basically played professional football externally of New Zealand, and everyone was going, oh, he's just playing in a not very good league. Well, he's proven you all wrong. And I'm really pleased for him.
He's playing in a very good league now, and he's one of the standout players. This is the Auckland FC broadcast from the Tyler Street Sports Bar. Riccardo Ball and Chris Milicic with you. Auckland FC offers something for everyone with family activations, thrilling football, and loud supporters. For membership inquiries, visit aucklandfc.co.nz. When we come back, we'll get Millie to break down the Auckland FC squad and see who he thinks that best 11 is.
Players, managers, referees. Be a part of this football season. Find your local club at nzf.co.nz.
Football rivalries put to the test. This is the Studs Up podcast with Riccardo Ball and Daniel McCarty on Sport Nation.
Given that we've just had the first legs of the quarterfinals of the Champions League, I thought we should tackle those. Arsenal 3, Real Madrid 0. Did not see that coming. Bayern 1, Inter 2. Probably didn't see that coming. The other two a bit more predictable.
I wasn't surprised Arsenal actually beat Real Madrid. I've been pretty high on Arsenal in this format due to their defensive solidity. Now, I know they had issues. Gabriel picking up a sizable complaint was a big loss. But Real Madrid, I know they can sprinkle their never-ending Champions League dust. They might not be out of this, but they have not been vintage this year. They look susceptible to attacks. I was just surprised by the score line. I thought maybe Arsenal might snatch this by a solitary goal because I've been pretty derogatory of them going forward. But if they can bottle that second half, Rick, they were excellent. Arsenal were excellent. And of course, who's going to grab the headlines? Well, Declan Rice. It's incredible. 2 amazing goals. 2, you're like you're doing your own Keith Quinn while watching that in your lounge. It's quite startling, and I love the numbers. He's played over 400 senior matches, both club and international, and he's never scored a free kick. And yet he goes and has 2 bangers in the space of 12 minutes. The first one just curls a remarkable amount. And the second one, if you're painting fine art of a free kick, you put it in that much of the top corner. I didn't think it could happen in real life. It was A++.
Do you think that Declan Rice will now turn into Turbo Cristiano Ronaldo and demand to take every free kick for the next 100 games and put them all out of the stadium?
And will we have the counter going up when he hits 65 missed attempts, or is he going to be Roberto Carlos and just try and recreate that goal for ever and a day?
Yeah, possibly.
It was amazing, wasn't it? Absolutely amazing. And I love that reaction. Is it Odegaard who's standing next to him during the second one? Just puts his hands on his head like, oh my God. And even the Real Madrid players were like sort of nodding, going, yeah, right. That's pretty decent.
You knew that it was good when Odegaard did that because that's Odegaard's specialty, right? He's the guy you expect to do that.
Yeah, very true. Not the best goal I saw on that day, though. That goes to Inter Milan for that outrageous team goal, built up from the back. They give you such complicated looks with that three-man defence, some stepping up, others not, and the way they work the ball upfield. But then the combination between that two-man strike force, and I do love a two-man strike force. We are children of the 90s, aren't we, Riccardo? But the layoff from Thuram and then the outside of the right finish from Lautaro Martinez, that's a better goal. I know all of them are amazing, and I probably shouldn't rank them, but gee, there was some really, really lovely moments in those two games.
Yeah, they were. Arsenal 3, Real Madrid 0. And you said if they could bottle that second half, and I was like, ooh, is bottle the right term to use when they've still got to go to Spain?
Real do look vulnerable. I don't think they've kept a clean sheet in approaching 10 games, maybe 9 or 10 games. Arsenal have got to believe that they'll add to that 3. And I know when you have a front four like they do, of Mbappe, of Rodrigo, of Vinny Jr., of Bellingham, that anything is possible. But it does seem like, to me, Arsenal are going through to the next round.
They could have done with a Vinny Jones rather than a Vinny Jr. in that first leg, couldn't they? But we will see. Yeah, the Kiwi voice of sport indeed, and Auckland FC offers something for everyone with family activations, thrilling football, loud supporters. Membership inquiries, go to aucklandfc.co.nz, and for cold beers. And I tell you what, you'll back me up on this, Chris, possibly the best bar snack I have ever had, a cheeseburger spring roll. Those got to be tried to be believed.
Yeah, when you told me that's what we were having, I couldn't quite believe you, but I have to back you up. It is definitely a cheeseburger and a spring roll.
Yeah, it's like a Big Mac and a phyllo, and it's been fried. It's amazing, and you can get all of that here at the Tyler Street Sports Bar, which is the home of Auckland FC. When they're not at home, currently Melbourne victory 3-1 up over the Wellington Phoenix, and very much a question of a red card for you, Millie.
Yeah, look, I think Jackson deserved a red card, but of course with VAR and the referees, they've elected to only be yellow. But you have to question when the ball's gone past, he's flowing in, he's tackled the player, foot's quite high. I don't know what a red card is anymore. Yeah,
I've got to say, when you pointed that out to me and said, oh, that's a red card, I was like, oh, he's just about chopped him in half. But no, nothing happened, and VAR didn't get involved either. So it's another one for the VAR mystery book. So let's talk Auckland FC, though, because they've probably got the best goalkeeper in the comp, right, in Alex Paulson. Would that be fair to say? I mean, I look at Lawrence Thomas, I think he's probably there or thereabouts, but I think Paulson's probably the best.
I think it would be fair to say that if you qualified or quantified best, yes, Alex would be there because he's got the biggest upturn. He's going somewhere, and he's still quite young. What is he, 22? He's still got some areas to work on, but I think for an A-League perspective, he is beyond the A-League. So as soon as you'll be on the A-League, you then go, right, yeah, so you're probably the best goalkeeper, because I'm not so sure when I look at the other keepers, they're really beyond the A-League. And because he wins them games, he wins them a lot of games, and he did that last year for the Phoenix. It's probably no surprise he's not at the Phoenix, and they're having a year like this. If he's there, they've probably picked up another 10, 12, 14 points. So makes a difference to have a keeper like him, and you know, there's a reason Bournemouth signed him.
Yeah, there is a reason Bournemouth signed him. I did look at Alex, met him at one of the games, and I was like, he's not as big as I thought you were, right? You know, he plays bigger than he is. What is he, 6 foot, 6'1"? To what your point about he needs to get out of the A-League, right? Does this season he needs to then go overseas to break that mould. Is he big enough to be a keeper at the top end?
So I think his next move, he will end up in a championship, maybe the Scottish Premier League or something like that, and that's where the answer will be found. The modern goalkeepers don't come for crosses anyway, so it's not as big a deal as it used to be. I mean, you see some of those giants playing in the English Premier League, crosses are coming and they're not going anywhere near them. So I don't think that's going to hold him back, but what I think will hold him back is when there's challenges in the year, he's going to have to play a lot bigger. You know, he has got a spring, he's got an ability, but he still wants to stay on his line. And the problem is when he stays on his line and balls are flashing around, he sometimes slaps at them. I mean, all these things will be tidied up. So I would imagine the Black Knights pathway will say, let's stick him in somewhere where it's going to be really challenging. And if he comes through that, then I think they'll go, okay, we stick him as number 2 at Bournemouth or number 3 at Bournemouth. He's a long way from number 1 at Bournemouth, I would imagine, because there's 20 keepers in the Premier League and they're getting the best 20 in the world. So it's not as simple as, he's on a track there. There's a lot of ground to be covered before he gets there.
But I'd be interested to know, in boxing parlance, they talk about reach, because he is only 6 foot, 6'1", whatever it is, but he looks like he's got like an Anthony Joshua type reach. Like he looks his wingspan is massive. And does that sometimes, I guess, forgive maybe 3 or 4 inches in height?
Yeah, it could do, but it all comes down to, I think, this, in a football goalkeeper sense, it becomes the size of your shoulder. So if you look at someone from the side, it's how wide your shoulder is from your back to your front. Now, that's what they classify a reach, because you can actually overextend your arm beyond somebody. Yeah, so if you've got a massive there, you stretch and your arm goes and you still retain the strength to use your hand. And so I think that'll be what they'll be doing physically, developing him. But I think that spring's what separates him out. He has got a spring, and he's very quick, but he's going to have to tidy up his hands a little bit, I think, for that next level.
Yeah, all right. Well, that's Alex Paulson. He is the number 1 keeper, without doubt, at Auckland FC. Yep. No one else has had a look. And what about in front of him? I mean, when Tommy Smith was signed, I assumed that Tommy was just going to start, right? And they'd find a partner for him. They signed Dan Hall. I thought that was it. Then Nando comes in, and all of a sudden it's Nando and Dan Hall. So how do you read that? And what is the best partnership, given that we've seen Tommy have a crack?
At the end of the day, I think the best partnership is Hall and Pinnaker. For no other reason, it's a left and right-footed. Pinnaker's surprised a lot of people. He would be the one that surprised most. Because when he first left and he went over to Ireland and all that, and he was Portugal, and everyone was like, okay, let's see what he can do. He was wasn't slight, but he wasn't as the size he is now. And to be fair, he's come back and he's proven, and he scores goals, and he's quite aggressive, and he's starting to be really proactive with his passing. When I first started at Auckland FC, I thought some of his passing was just really safe. And now he's starting to work on that. But I think Hall is the one. I mean, he's an absolute athlete. And look, he comes out of Central Coast Mariners. They've won 2 titles, and he comes here. Now, there's a reason that. But I think they're the best pairing, because unfortunately for Tommy, I think that real top-end pace is gone. It's his experience that gets him around the park. What a brilliant guy to have in your squad. What a brilliant guy to bring off your bench when you're trying to hold on to a lead or chasing something. And I think that he's embraced that role. And even he would say he's probably started a lot more games than he was expecting because of Hall's injury.
Yeah, now we've talked about Hiroki Sakai. You said probably the best player in the league. Francis de Vries, the guy that surprised everybody at left back as well. He got in there ahead of Scott Galloway and just stayed there. Another guy that doesn't start a lot but gets brought on a lot when they do decide to go to a back 5 and Hiroki tucks in as a right-sided of a back 3 is Callan Elliott.
Yeah.
Every time Callan Elliott has come on this season, he's impressed me. He looks like he's been playing every week.
I'd agree with you. So in every game he plays, he's never once let himself down. I mean, he scored a cracker goal the other week. He puts in amazing crosses. He gets up and down the line. When I was watching them at training, he works so hard at it. And I thought to myself, he's a player. If you were willing to put yourself in the shop window for other clubs, they'd be looking at him going, oh, okay, he's all right. Yeah. So if he doesn't get an opportunity, but maybe they see him as a long-term future to Sakai, but my feeling is Sakai will sign a new contract. And
well, he signed a one-year extension, right? So
Callum might take the opportunity, or Galloway, one of them might go, well, I'm going to go. Yep. And that's fine. That's football. But I think Callum Elliott, if Sakai was injured, you'd have to go, sure, it's not the same type of player, but he's a very good replacement, and I think he's done extremely well for himself.
Yeah. Now, the rest of the team, we've done the back 4 and the keeper. I guess it depends which formation, right? Because at the start of the season, it was very much 4-3-3. But I think we can all agree, is more of a 10 than a 9. Rather, remind me a little bit of Roberto Firmino. When he was at Liverpool, he wore the 9, but he really played inverted. And I think Steve Winwood to score, because they were leaving a lot of goals out there. That's why he went to the front too. So, I mean, if you're having to build this best Auckland FC team with the squad you've got, which formation are you sticking with? Are you going to go the 4-4-2, or are you going to go back to a 4-3-3?
You see, I quite liked him when Brimmer was in the 4-3-3 just in behind May. I quite like that. But then again, you've got Max, and Max is a traditional 9. And I think that when he came into the 4-3-3, he's not as clever as May or that sort of thing. He is what he is, a pure 9. So I think they wanted to go to a system which all their players could actually function in. And by May, he can drop off and play in the 10. So they're basically a 4-3-3 anyway in attack. It's just that May tends to play in behind Marta. So it depends what you want to do and who you're going to play against. And I think that's one of the most exciting things about the squad, is they can pick players for the opposition that'll cause problems for the opposition. I mean, there's some games with Marta has just muscled up and won balls and flicks, and they've scored goals off them. And in other games, he's been ineffective for no other reason than he's up against other people. And then when they go May and Brimmer, you go, wow, they're ripping them apart. So I think that one of the cool things about the Auckland FC squad is that functionality and that adaptability across all their players. But if you were playing a 2 up front, it would be May and Marta. If you're playing in a 3, it'd be May and Brimmer, in my opinion.
Yeah, okay, all right. And in terms of what we've seen sitting in front of the defence, I mean, it's Gallegos and Verstraete, and then, I don't, without being disrespectful, but it really is those two and then Daylight, right?
Yeah, it is Daylight. I think Verstraete, when they first come in, they were thinking 4-1-4-1, if I was honest, with a double pivot in front of him. And to be fair, he's a very, very destructive, crazy person, right? As a 6, he gets around, he wins balls, he wins everything, and he's quite incredible. But when you go to the game, you actually realise Gallegos is the link. Yeah. He's available for every player 10 metres away. His work rate's something else. And once they went into this 4-4-2, they press with incredible movement in the midfield too. They're marking 3, and their movement is just perennial running. And I think that's where Verstraete's starting to... He gets around the pitch, don't get me wrong, but he's a bigger man. To get around the pitch like that is difficult. Whereas Gallegos, he's the one that's impressed me most in the holder. I mean, what a player.
If you ever wanted a personification of the Energizer battery, it's Gallegos, isn't it? I mean, because he just goes and he goes and then he goes some more.
That's right. And then Verstraete's winning a tackle and he's 10 metres away, gets the ball, plays, and then it goes to a wing and they're bouncing back and he's there again. And when you watch him live and you just watch the lines he runs, the way he runs, he is... ultimately, as you said, the Energizer Bunny, and I'd love to know what his numbers were in some of those games, because some of his movement and that, and he even gets into the box and like he scored the other week, and you're like, wow. You know, when they break that front line, and they're penetrating the Auckland FC, he's doing 50-yard doggies to get back. It's amazing.
He's an amazing player. He's certainly got a hell of an engine on him. We've talked the backs, we've talked the centre of the park, we've talked up front. What about the wings? Because I think another player, a bit like Francis de Vries, when he signed, Logan Rogerson didn't expect to start every week, and he has been a real winner of this season under Steve Corica. Yeah,
he really has, but I think that early on, he needed to understand what Steve wanted. And I think the reason Logan plays every week, because one thing Logan's always had is he doesn't give up. Like, if Steve tells him to press the winger 50 yards at the park, he's going to go do it. I'm not saying he doesn't think, but he's no longer the Logan of old. So his work rate's unbelievable. And I think in their new system, he's always going to play because he needs to get inside and help the midfielders, otherwise he gets swamped. So, and it's his fitness, his ability to move around the park, and his ability to follow instructions that we see Logan. And he's scoring goals. I mean, everyone talks about their header, but I'm pretty sure it come off his shoulder, and the little tuck away everyone's raving on about. I think it was his touch, and I don't care. But at the end of the day, he's one that's really embraced what Steve wants to do, and he's fundamentally a key component of this team now.
It was interesting when Moreno came in and started to take minutes off him, coming off the bench. And then Steve started Moreno, and I thought that going forward was great, but the drop-off was noticeable when we didn't have the ball because he didn't do the tracking that Logan did.
So he's the only player within the Auckland FC system that doesn't speak English. Right. All the others, May and all the other Gallegos, they all speak English. He doesn't speak English, and he's come from Colombia. And in Colombia, you wouldn't be expected in his role to do a lot of doggies back and to do the defending structure. But I think that you can't underestimate how many games he's won. those goals he scores at the death, the ones he screams into the top corner, and he's trying to score in every single game. They're a much more dangerous side when he's on the park, I believe. In the first few games, I think he was trying to play what I call that South American possession football. There were opportunities for him to be in the attacking zone, and he elects to just keep the ball. Now when he goes forward, he's crashing crosses. He's trying to get on the end of crosses. He's trying to create things. He's trying to be dangerous, and he's shooting. And I think also, a bit like Logan, it takes some time to understand what Steve wants, because wingers, a coach, they have to do what a coach wants. And it takes them a little while to understand, because every coach is different with their wingers. The wingers is the one role you actually change and adapt to your system. You might play them inverted. You might play them going out. You might play one playing in the middle. So you might play a lopsided front three, etc. So I think that we've seen them really start to develop quite well.
Now, the one position I would suggest that Auckland FC don't have a nailed-down preference for would be that left-sided attacking player, right? Whether you call him a left winger or a part of a left front three. Liam Gillian got the job early. He impressed a lot early. Then he seemed to struggle from a physical point of view. He got knocked off the ball a few times. Though now with Francois, seems to be the preferred option. I've not been convinced by him. I think they're still searching in that part of the field.
I think that would be accurate, but neither Gillian and neither Francois are left-footed. They want to come inside. So there's a reason most of the crosses on the left side come from the left fullback. And of course, it's quite difficult when you're playing on the left wing and he's crossing. It's very hard to get yourself in the middle to attack it. I think Liam Gilliam, if he'd have scored a goal or two early on, we'd be seeing him playing, but he didn't. And then it's his first year as a professional footballer, and I don't no disrespect to Auckland City, but you're playing for Auckland City, you're winning most of your games, you don't have to do a lot of defending as such. You do have to defend in that. So to go to the jump where he's expected to do it that, and then of course the little niggles come through. So, but I'm a bit like you, but I have a feeling that Francois could explode. I mean, he's a hell of an athlete. He's a lightning quick. I've watched him when he played against Central Coast Mariners when he come on. He really did cause them problems. But he didn't score.
No,
he missed a few chances, and his crossing wasn't quite on the money. So regardless of how well you seem to pump up the crowd with your movement and your enthusiasm, you've got to have some outcome. And I think that he's with two coaches, and Danny and Steve, where they want outcomes.
Yeah, he's quite one-footed as well, right? I don't think I've seen a more one-footed player since playing seven-a-side football at Fencibles with Paul Hutchinson, who only uses his left to stand on. Are you surprised then, if you look at that, when you've got somebody like Scott Galloway with his experience, that they haven't gone, look, why don't we push either him or Francis de Vries as a left half in a 4-4-2, and then you've got two left-footers up the same side who are both capable of defending?
You'd have to ask them, but my feeling is the way they want to play, they want Francis crossing, and they want all the right-hand side and the central players attacking it, and they probably want the winger inside on his right foot, so when the ball comes out, they can hit. There's a tactical reason for it. So if you're crossing from the left side and they go in, it gets cleared, it's generally going to come to the left-hand pocket, touch and shoot. And there's been a couple of opportunities when both Liam and Francois have had that opportunity, they just haven't finished. So I think that's more a tactical reason. I don't know. I'd almost be prepared to do it the other way. Chuck Logan over there and give Callum Elliott a run on the wing.
Okay, all right. There you go. You heard it first here on Sport Nation. Riccardo Ball, Chris Milicic with you live from the Tyler Street Sports Bar, getting ready for Sydney FC against Auckland FC. Auckland FC is Auckland's newest football club. Tyler Street Sports Bar is the newest place to come and watch them as their home away from home.
Players, managers, referees. Be a part of this football season. Find your local club at nzf.co.nz.
Football rivalries put to the test. This is the Studs Up podcast with Riccardo Ball and Daniel McCarty on Sport Nation.
Shouldn't forget about the domestic game in New Zealand, because Auckland City FC continue to be leading the way in excellence there, and they are into the final of the Oceania Champions League yet again. I think it's their 13th final they've made.
Incredible. Yeah, amazing. It's a heck of an achievement. You could say the strong just get stronger. Every time you go to one of those big events, you get a slice of the cake, don't you? A bigger slice than others. But you've got to be good enough to stay there, and they've been exactly that. Club World Cup on the horizon too, right? It's a really, really big time for them.
Yeah, massive time for them, and they're getting banked something between 6 and 10 million US from that, I believe. which, half that goes to New Zealand football and gets distributed amongst other clubs. But still, that is going to be a massive shot in the arm for Auckland City FC. And I know they've ruled themselves out of running for this new Oceania Premier League, but I do wonder whether or not there's something else brewing on that front.
Would I?
Well, you know how Auckland City had to set themselves up separately to be in the National League from Central, but Central still exists as a club. I have heard that maybe there's going to be a separate entity, maybe called City FC, potentially, who aren't the same as Auckland City or Central, but maybe sort of run by some people that are involved there. Put their hands up. That is a whisper. That's a rumour.
That's confusing.
I can't say where I've heard it from, but that is what I've heard.
Watch this space.
Yeah.
What is not a rumour? Ben Old returned. I know we're getting to the English Premier League. Ben Old returned for Saint Etienne in Ligue 1 after a long time out. Perfect timing for them. They're mired in a relegation battle. I think they're, 4 points off safety. Wish him all the very best. And his timing's pretty impeccable because Saint Etienne's... Did you hear that game against Montpellier a couple of weeks ago? They got cancelled because the Montpellier fans decided to revolt because their team absolutely stinks and decided to set their own stand on fire. I thought it was interesting.
It was interesting.
Fan behaviour.
Yeah, well, hopefully Ben Old gets a run. He got 22 minutes off the bench in that game against Lens, but they need to get some points to stay up because, he had a taste of League One early, then got that injury, and it'd be a pity for him to, sort of have to not turn out in League Two. He'd probably get more game time, to be honest, but, I think his level is League and he could play that level, and it'd be better to see him there than in the next league down if he can get some points, help Saint Etienne get some points and survive the season.
Yeah, Saint Etienne taking on Brest this weekend. Allow the children to laugh now. You
laughed? Okay, good. Let's talk about the Premier League from last weekend, Daniel. And boy, if only you talked about it just before. If only Western United could beat Western Sydney and then close the gap to 2 points before Auckland played, it would be a whole different game. Do you think if Fulham 3, Liverpool 2 happened before Arsenal played Everton, that would have been a different game?
Quite possibly. I did say in previous weeks, though, Liverpool don't need to be perfect on the run home. So people who are expecting a slip-up, like Rick Dog clearly is hoping and dreaming of a slip-up, I said it twice, I just don't think there's all that much pressure on Liverpool because Arsenal just haven't had the cutting edge. That's why I said if they can bottle that second half against Real Madrid in that competition going forward, they're a great chance to win it. They're going to have to do that regularly in the English Premier League.
Studs Up podcast live from the Tyler Street Sports Bar on Sports Nation. Riccardo Ball, Chris Milicic with me as we lead into Sydney FC versus Auckland FC, and joining us is one of the faithful who has come here to watch the home away from home, Steve Tui. G'day, Steve. How you doing? We'll just pull your mic down to there, brother. There you go. Now, you've obviously you got all the gear on, mate. You got the jacket, you got the hat. How long did it take you to get to buy into the Auckland FC project? Oh, no, there you go. Millie's just lost his headset. There we go.
How are we?
There we go, Steve.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
No, straight away when the team was announced that it was going to be in, season tickets for the family and right into it. And, yeah, it's been amazing.
What was your expectation when it got announced? At this time of the season, where were you expecting the club to be?
I think it depended on the imports that we signed. I mean, at the end of the day, we had local lads that people know do okay, but I think it comes down to your imports. And I think, again, we've signed some really good people, and the players have been brilliant. And obviously the coach, I mean, he knows the league. So we went in, I don't think, with too many surprises. And, they've done awesome.
Now, you got a prediction for us tonight?
2-0.
2-0?
Yeah, one in each half.
One in each. I'll take that, mate. Who's scoring for us?
I think Maya gets in the first half, and then hopefully we see a screamer from Jack Brimmer. I mean, Jack Brimmer, we need one from them.
Yeah, we do. We do need one. There you go. Open the Betcha app and then go to the Steve Tui special. It is Auckland FC 2-0 with Brimmer and Mai both to score. Steve, what do you reckon that'd pay us?
$7.50.
$7.50? Okay, all right. I reckon we might get a bit more juice out of it than that, mate, to be honest. All right, whereabouts in the stands are your tickets?
Right on halfway, 15 seats up, so primo seats.
Western stand, Eastern stand?
Eastern stand, yeah.
Right, I went Eastern stand to start with. Sun did my...
Yeah, you get a bit of a suntan.
Yeah, it does. I've gone Western stand.
Okay, mate.
I live in the shade, mate. I live in the shade. Steve, and which club, tell us, I mean, big part of Auckland FC launching was a percentage of ticket sales went back to clubs, local clubs. Which club are you affiliated with?
Affiliated with Unimount, particularly the women's side. So, I think particularly with a club like us, where we're trying to get back to where we've been in the past, that it all helps. And, there's a lot of people there, a lot of the girls come to the games. There's good support there. So, but again, it's giving back to the community, and that's what they've done well, I think, Auckland. I mean, they've brought in people. If you go there, you're going to have a good time, irrespective whether you like football or not.
Yeah.
They've done it right, and I think other clubs are learning from it. So social media wise, it's great.
Yeah, we're going to have a women's team next season.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah, looks that way. Is
that right?
Yeah, looks that way. Yeah. Hey, Steve, thanks for jumping on the mic, mate.
All good, buddy.
Appreciate it. Go well, enjoy the game.
Take care.
I hope you enjoy. Do you come to Tyler Street for all the away games?
A couple, we've been to a few.
Yeah, cool, mate. Well, keep it up, mate. Keep it up.
Thanks, buddy. You take care.
Yeah, no, thank you.
See you, mate.
Steve Tui there with us, a part of the Auckland supporter group that is here at Tyler Street Sports Bar. And Luke Casserly has also joined us. Now, Luke Casserly is the under 21s, under 23s coach. So he is. To be honest, Luke, could they not afford the Toblerone at the airport, mate? I thought you'd be on the plane. Thought you'd be over there.
No. Obviously, I work with the A-League team when they're here.
Yeah.
But when and I'm involved in game days at home. But when they travel away, as head coach of the Resis of the under 21s, we have games here and training and the like. So I look after the younger boys here and any players that don't travel away. Work with them on individual programs while they're not with the A-League squad when they travel. Yeah,
now pretty fresh for you guys. I think 4 games in. You had a few draws to start with and got a bit of a touch up last night. But what are you learning about your squad?
Yeah, look, it's an interesting one. Like pretty much the whole squad will still be there next year. So last night was an interesting one. Like it's one of those real funny ones that you learn at this age, where we actually played some really good passages of football. Some of the best passages that we have. We made more chances in this game against a really good team than we did against some other teams. But when we made mistakes, we got punished and punished heavily. So I guess the main way that we've been looking at it as a coaching staff is when we get to, this time next year, round 1, round 2 next year, and these boys have been in the program for a full year, on the strength and conditioning program for a full year, we feel, we should be way ahead of where we are now. A lot of them are just 17 and 18 years old. And
are you enjoying your time at Auckland FC, Luke?
Yeah, loving it. Like, it's a beautiful city. I think as you get a little bit older, you realise when you're in work environments, how enjoyable it is when you're with really good people. And for me, that's the number one thing across the board at this club. Everybody's been super welcoming. Everyone is really humble, really nice. Obviously, I've known Steve, Terry and Doug Cors for quite some time, but the group as a whole has been fantastic, so I couldn't be happier.
Now, Liam Gillian was a player that grabbed everybody's attention at the start of this season. Who's the next Liam Gillian? Who's the next name we're looking out for? Yeah,
it's an interesting one. So there's a couple of young boys, and at the young age, their performances vary. So sometimes you get excited about someone one game, and then the next week it's a little bit different. But one of the young boys that I'm a big fan of is Ryan Mackay. Central defender, really big, physical presence. He needs to work on that though. Like, he's a bit of a gentle giant at the moment from playing school football.
Needs to sharpen those elbows. Yeah,
absolutely. But he's got all the attributes to go a really long way. And it's hard. You don't want to just single out one. There's a few boys in there that have a lot of potential, but there's so many things that go into it. And probably the number one thing is, their dedication and commitment to the craft.
Yeah, Luke, listen, I appreciate you coming on at such short notice. You just came in for a beer to watch the game. We rope you into this, mate. So but before we do let you go,
Happy
though,
days, yeah.
give us your prediction for the game.
Yeah, difficult one. Look, obviously we go into every game to win. So, yeah, I think it's a good time to get Sydney, given the travel and what they had midweek, and it was on turf and all those kind of things. But and obviously a big one for Steve, going back to his old club for a long time. So, really hope the boys can do it for him. But I won't go into scores, but yeah, really, really excited and hopeful for a win tonight.
Yeah, Luke's taken the W. That's all you need to know. Auckland FC is Auckland's newest football club and offers something for everyone. Inquiries for memberships, aucklandfc.co.nz.
Players, managers, referees. Be a part of this football season. Find your local club at nzf.co.nz.
Football rivalries put to the test. This is the Studs Up podcast with Riccardo Ball and Daniel McCarty on Sport Nation.
Now, Daniel, it is time for your favourite time of the week, because I know you get to sit back and
Bring on the big man.
Bring on the big man indeed. It is Lockie's Stat Attack.
Hello, Daniel Rick Dog. Today I'll be talking about who I think's going to get in the Champions League, how close it is, and the 4 people I think will make it to the Champions League. Just because Liverpool is crushing the Premier League title, no one is really into the Premier League anymore. But who might else take top 4? Chelsea's in 4th place with 53, Newcastle 53, Man City 52, Aston Villa 51. I think Liverpool, Arsenal, Forest and Chelsea will make it into the Champions League. I think Chelsea might just. One of their big enemies in the Premier League is probably Newcastle. And Newcastle will host Chelsea in round 36. That's my stat attack for this week. Who do you think's going to make it to Europe?
Oh, thanks very much, Lockie. It's a great question. Who's going to make it to Europe? Because he's right. Chelsea, Newcastle, Man City, Villa, it's all very tight, Daniel. I think after Arsenal winning that game against Real, it means that the top 5 now get Champions League in the Premier League, but still, 2 of those teams are going to miss out.
I'm going to draw a line under Crystal Palace, who are in 11th, and go up and say all of those sides wouldn't look out of place in the Champions League. Bournemouth, I still don't know how they find themselves in 10th. You look at their underlying numbers; they should be Nottingham Forest. They could be Nottingham Forest in 3rd position. It's complicated. I know you tried to extinguish Fulham's chances last weekend. I think you're probably right. I'm not sure they'll be able to leapfrog enough teams, but they're on 48 points. Brighton out of it on 47. I do think Bournemouth and Crystal Palace are, even though they're in that dreaded mathematical realm. But Aston Villa have found some good form. City still are unconvincing. Newcastle seem to have no lack of energy after the Carabao Cup win. They're going great guns. Chelsea, I'm starting to wonder about. Which would be really fascinating if they fall out of those spots. What do they do with Enzo Maresca? I'm not sure Chelsea fans are in love with the football he's playing. The misfiring at the wrong time of the season. But they are currently in 4th position, but Newcastle do have a game at hand. So I'm going to lock in Newcastle.
Okay. Newcastle is 4th.
But there could be 5 teams make the Champions League, right?
Yes.
So if you don't finish in the top 4, all is not lost. But yeah. And Nottingham Forest. I could see them losing to Everton this weekend, couldn't you? The way Everton is going.
Yeah, I mean
Everton's proving to be a real barnacle at the moment.
I think they've lost 1 in their last 11. And that was the 1-0 loss at Anfield. They drew with the Arsenal last time out. They're a tough team. Moyes has got them playing really, really well. So, yeah, I think the way Everton's set up, Daniel, is probably the antithesis to Nuno, because he's used to giving teams the ball and then hitting them on the counter. And that's why Hudson-Odoi and Alanga have been so effective in the league. But what does he do when he needs to break? Riccardo Ball and Chris Milicic live for Studs Up from Tyler Street Sports Bar here for AFC against Sydney FC. It is the home away from home. If you're ever looking for somewhere to come and watch Auckland FC, Tyler Street Sports Bar is the place to be. Just make sure you book a table. Now, I can tell you that the Phoenix game against the Victory is 3-2. To the Victory, and that looks like my bet came in. I took Valupale and Machach and to score and over 2.5 goals. That's definitely happened. Millie, if you were going to go anywhere for the Sydney Auckland FC game, where would you go?
As in a winner?
Yeah.
You'd have to go, I think that Auckland FC will win this. It'd be really tight, but I believe they'll get up and win it. And I'm a bit like Luke, I wouldn't know the score. But yeah, I think they'll get up and win it. Yeah,
I've got Auckland FC to win. Guillermo Mai and Joe Lolly both have one shot on target, pays $40.
One shot on target?
Yeah. Well, you put $10 on, pays $40. There you go.
Fair call.
There you go. There. That'll pay for our beers for the night, won't it? I'll pay for mine anyway. Millie, thanks very much for coming along tonight, mate. It's been a pleasure having you here with us. And, looking forward to what is going to be an outstanding ramp up to the end of the season. We're going to have some finals football and potentially a grand final in New Zealand. Would you be for the club going to Eden Park for a grand final?
No, I'd stay at Mount Smart, go media every day of the week and just try and turn into a fortress, try and win. Who cares about all the other stuff? Just go and win the game. Yeah, go and win the game. All right, there you go. You heard it here first from Chris Milicic. This is the Studs Up podcast, live from the Tyler Street Sports Bar. It is the home of Auckland FC, Auckland's newest football club. Offers something for everyone, family activations, thrilling football, loud supporters. For membership inquiries, head to visitaucklandfc.co.nz. That is where you get to find it all. That is us. We're off to raid the bar and to sit back and watch the game. Thanks to B-Man and to Logan Swinkles, to Chris Milicic, all for helping the program go to air. And you can find the Studs Up podcast on your podcaster of choice. We do something every week, myself and Daniel McCarty, very much in the Wellington Phoenix colours, so we didn't invite him along tonight, but maybe next time we'll get McCarty up on the big bird. It is 5 away from kickoff. Enjoy your game.